years at Brown County Human Services. I worked as a social worker, supervisor, and also a director in my last years, and so I was asked to moderate this panel presentation tonight. So I want to thank you again for coming. This is one in a series of ongoing information and educational sessions brought to you by the New Ulm Area Memory Care Friends, which is a group of community members who are working with area organizations, businesses, and individuals to help our community become more dementia friendly. So the purpose of our session today is to build understanding through real life experiences that will be shared by our panel tonight. Discover strengths as well as some of the unmet needs in our community. Connect community members with education and resources to support those living with dementia and their caregivers. So first of all,
someone will say they can't.
Oh, sorry, I thought I had
No, try it.
How's this? Is that, oh, much better. Sorry about that. Okay, I'd like to first of all thank our panelists who are taking the time out of their day tonight to help with this presentation. Also CAST for providing the cafetorium for us to use for this event. South Point Credit Union for sponsoring this event. And of course the New Ulm Area Memory Care Friends, who are the ones who put together this event this evening. So for housekeeping, you should all have received surveys that are sitting on your chair. And so I just want you to remind you to please complete those and drop them off in the basket at the door before you leave. We hope to have some time for questions. So there are green slips as well that are available on the chair or in the back. I'm not sure. So if you have any questions, please write those on the green slips, and those will be collected and brought up to me to share with the panel if we have time at the end of the presentation. Also want to remind you to stop at the resource table after the session as well. So I'm going to begin with just a brief overview of dementia. Dementia is an umbrella term for people who have difficulty thinking, remembering, speaking, and problem solving in their daily life. Dementia is not a disease, but a set of symptoms. Dementia is similar to the word cancer in the sense that there are many types of cancer, and there are also many different types of dementia as well. So for today, we're going to learn about dementia through sharing vital information. I'm going to be starting with our first presenter, Caitlin Gawrish from the Community Health Improvement Coordinator for the Heart of New Ulm. So Caitlin?
Thank you. I'm Caitlin Gawrish. Like she said, I'm the Community Health Improvement Coordinator for the Heart of New Ulm project. Our project has 7 different action teams. And our mental health and wellness action team is one of them, and we're currently doing different presentations on the dangers of social isolation. So this discussion is especially dear to my heart because on the day of my high school graduation, we did the things. We walked in the service, had the party, everybody was over, and as we were winding down, the home phone rang. That didn't happen all the time, but it was great grandma. That's when the home phone rang. And she was lost. She had left about an hour before, and I grew up in Milwaukee, so there was 1,000 ways that this drive could have gone wrong. And that was just the beginning of her long battle with dementia. So my grandparents at the time were still working, coming to all of our events, super involved in our lives. And I watched them have to kind of retire and become full-time caregivers on a dime. That took quite a toll on them, and years of isolating themselves and putting all of their own needs aside. Now I can really see the health consequences that has had for them. So even though great grandma is not with us anymore, my grandparents' patterns of isolating themselves still remain. So now as an adult, as someone who's very passionate about active, healthy living, as well as just being their grandchild who loves them, that is especially difficult for me to watch. I wish I knew then what I knew now. So I'm currently in a different phase of caregiving. I have 5 kids under 11. So it's very busy. I'm deep in the trenches of being needed every minute of the day. And as you know, caregiving does not stop, right? When you're tired or when you're busy or overwhelmed. It certainly doesn't stop when you're sick. We power through. So I want to encourage you today to take time to also care for yourself. And I remember after I had my second baby, someone said something about self-care, and I actually laughed. You just picture this bubble bath and a glass of wine, and who actually has time for that? None of us. But that's not what I want you to think of. So I challenge you when you hear self-care to think of 3 things. First, move your body in any way that brings you joy. Just a few minutes a day can have a profound impact on not just your physical health, but your mental health as well. It doesn't have to be a huge shift in your routine. Stretching from a chair, going for a walk, stretching while you watch TV, right? Anything small and manageable is good. Those endorphins and that dopamine help you show up not just with physical strength, but with patience and joy for the people in your life. Second, preparing and feeding yourself foods that nourish you. Our gut and our brain are connected, so what we consume directly impacts our nervous system. When I'm done with this, I'm gonna bolt out of here to catch my son's baseball game, and we're gonna grab Quick Trip for dinner, and I guarantee I will be sleeping in the bottom bunk in a bed full of unicorns very quickly tonight. I'll be out of energy and out of patience because I know how to fuel myself, and I'm gonna ignore it because I'm in a rush today. So just again, taking that time to prepare foods that nourish your body and your brain, help us show up our best for the people that we love. And then lastly, connecting with others. The American Heart Association recently came out with data that compares loneliness to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's obviously bad for our mental health, but our physical health as well. Those are connected. We're seeing national statistics that are sad around loneliness. At Alina, where my office is, we do the health-related social needs survey. And right now that identifies social isolation and loneliness as the #1 cause for concern across all age levels. So I think just the fact that you're here today, that you started this group, that's so powerful, and you're on the right track. Connecting with other people in the same boat as you is a great first step, and we look forward to trying to bring that on a bigger scale to make sure everyone knows about this group and has that opportunity to feel connected. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Caitlin, for taking the time away from your family to be with us tonight, and it speaks of your dedication and your passion for what you do. So thank you very much, and we will excuse you so you can go to your son's baseball game. And next we will move on to Dave Morkert, who is not only the New Ulm Police Chief, but he's also a part of the South Central Emergency Medical System, and he is going to be presenting to you next.
Thank you. Again, my name is Dave Morkert. I'm the Chief of Police with the City of New Ulm. I'm also a Brown County Commissioner, so I'm on wear a lot of hats connected with that responsibility. And one organization that I'm affiliated is South Central EMS. So we're talking about more a responder standpoint. As far as when I was preparing some of my comments, responder, whether it's law enforcement, if it's a ambulance, EMT responding to a call, the responses, the challenges are very similar. So I'll kind of probably be merging some of my comments. So the story that I had shared on the very first round of this, it was involving talking a little bit about my initial response to a situation when I was 30 years ago when I was a young police officer, and basically in a situation where we're calling out a very large search party, or I was prepared to, off of some comments, and it ended up being connected with dementia. And it wasn't necessary to have that kind of response. And it was just, for me, it was kind of eye-opening as a younger person, as a young police officer. Later on, when my mom got diagnosed with dementia, going through all those stages, I had more knowledge that I acquired just from kind of living through that as a family member and dealing again with all the stages and with all the challenges connected with it. But the story that I think I'm gonna address is something that we see on a regular basis, and that's maybe unique to my profession. So when we have calls for service, when we're talking about 911, we obviously respond to anything. We don't know, an officer doesn't know what they're going to be responding to in 5 minutes from now. When the radio goes off, it goes off. When 911 comes in, we respond. And one situation that I'm going to share, and it's not isolated, I've seen this happen several times over my career, but it was a gentleman diagnosed with dementia, living in his residence with a family member. And he had a live-in girlfriend that he had been together with for several years. And the relationship had basically deteriorated over time, naturally deteriorated. But she was in that relationship because she couldn't leave him, because he had dementia and she was the caregiver. So she felt responsible to be there, and she had brought in help. She had brought in her adult daughter to assist because she was having a hard time managing it. This situation, how law enforcement got involved, we had several calls involving collisions. He'd kind of forget where he was at. We would be involved with that, getting called to that. But this one involved a domestic. So he had threatened her, he actually even assaulted her. And we got called there. And a domestic response, if you read the statute on domestic responses, law enforcement, we always have discretion, but realistically we have to look out for safety. And in this situation, we arrested him. We took him into custody, took him to jail. We recognized that wasn't ideally, in the grand scheme of things, the best place for this individual. However, at the end of the day, we had to create a safe environment, or as safe as we could, and we were afraid for her safety. So in a situation like that, very limited options available. And so I'm going to just, in the interest of time, to make sure that I stay on track, I'm going to talk about stages of basically law enforcement response, first responder responses, and emergency management. We have prevention, mitigation, the actual response itself, and then recovery. And all of them are unique, and they're stages that affect absolutely everything that we work on, from the most minor situation to the most complex. But as far as prevention, the case that I just gave as an example, we can't do much as far as prevention regarding that individual's diagnosis or the medical needs. So whether I'm in South Central EMS or if I'm working in some other capacity, as a first responder, not much I can do in that role. One option that I have, so this individual had a lot of firearms, and the wife was scared, or the girlfriend was very scared for her safety, and I think she had a right to be. Years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do much to try to keep that safe. We could try to work with voluntary compliance, but you have a Second Amendment right to firearms, and it was very challenging. Recently, we have what's called extreme risk protection orders, ERPLs, which are also known as red flag laws. Probably most people hear about it on the media, red flag laws. And in a situation like this, knowing what we knew, I was notified, and only the chief law enforcement officer of the jurisdiction is able to basically remove the firearms. And I have to go through the court. I have to have permission from the judge. It's a court order. Basically a search warrant is what I have. In this case, I was able to remove those guns, and there were several of them, because he was threatening about that, and she would share, he was up literally all night. And that's when, and she was very fearful, and she was exhausted. We're talking about caregiver support. She just couldn't do it anymore. And she was concerned about the firearms because sometimes it'd be what she was describing as delusional. And sometimes didn't even recognize her and felt that she was a threat and so on and so forth, and very concerned with the firearms. So in this case, we removed them. She's still with them. They're still, this is probably about 7 months ago. Life is still moving forward there, but as of this point, we still have the firearms. So at least from that standpoint, there's some safety involved. And again, that's always my role as a law enforcement officer, is to try to have a safe environment for everybody. As far as mitigation, I imagine I'm kind of running close. We can talk about, I don't know what the echo is, but alarms, cameras, motion detectors, family neighborhood contacts, and then again, I talked about removing the guns. So all of those things are options that we'll certainly provide for our community, but we have to work with the family member to be able to do that. Because again, we're here to help. It's not just enforcing laws, it's public safety. And then when we actually respond, oftentimes we do what's called a health and welfare hold, where we take the person into protective custody, not to jail, but then we have to find a place to transport the person to, and there's just very, very, very limited options. So that's, when we're taking that role, we do it on a regular basis, but it's extremely challenging. Sometimes in some cases just impossible, but we'll still do it. We'll still provide that health and welfare hold. And I think in the interest of time, I'll certainly be available for any questions later on, but thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for your service as well. I just want to mention, as a former employee of Brown County Human Services, we work closely with law enforcement, and we are very fortunate to have law enforcement in this area that is very committed to understanding mental health and dementia, and that's really important in their work as well. So we'll move on to Jerry Grebner, and Jerry is a caregiver and a dementia friend.
Okay, so yes, I am Jerry Grebner, and my story, or my journey, is really with my parents. They lived 3 hours away, and my dad has dementia, and I knew my mom couldn't take care of him on her own where they were, so I've moved them here in New Ulm. And so that's kind of how I've learned how isolating and difficult this journey is. And so through doing that, I myself needed, and I wasn't even the primary caregiver because my mom was doing most of it and I was just supporting her and helping, but I could see that there was a need and that there were no support groups or anything like that for people to go to. And so I looked into the Alzheimer's Association and tried to figure out what kind of training can I get to become a facilitator for a support group. And so I was able to go through an online training to do that. And Carla Hansel also did it. And then they connected the two of us together because they wanted to have two of us that would facilitate together. And so over a year ago, we started the first dementia support group here in New Ulm, which has been going strong, and we're really happy about that. And I also felt at my church, so I go to Christ the King Church, and I also could see there that were many older folks who were trying to care for loved ones, not necessarily with dementia. They just, maybe their husband, had physical ailments or just different things. And so I approached one of them and said, I think we just need to have like a caregiver coffee hour, and we just need to get together. And so within our church, we've created that. So if you're in need of a support group, there are a couple out there. The dementia support group, we meet on the second Tuesday of every month here at 10:30, and then the other support group meets at Christ the King Church on the first and the third Thursday at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So you're welcome to come to those if you would like. But I am also here to share a story of a friend who had a tough journey as well, and actually I feel like her journey has kind of, I hoped it would influence kind of my own journey with my mom. So she was caring for her husband with dementia for about 5 years, and the last 2 years were very difficult. He just needed constant supervision, which as dementia progresses, you just can't leave them alone. And that's kind of where we got with my dad too. We couldn't just leave him because we didn't know if he got up, where he would go, or if he needed help, or if he fell. Like we just couldn't do that. And so it became just a constant struggle. And she had an amazing network. She had family and she had friends, and she had a wonderful home care worker who came in and helped out, and they were great. But despite all of that help, as the dementia progressed, she found herself losing herself, which is what happens as being a caregiver. Your focus becomes your loved one, and you slowly lose yourself. You don't have time to go and do those things that you love to do. So like Caitlin said, even just taking 5 minutes to go walk around the house or go breathe in the sunshine and fresh air, but when you're in that moment, in that day in and day out, you just are sometimes so tired you don't even think about doing that. And so she was losing herself and wasn't doing yoga and walking and the things that she loved to do, and became emotionally exhausted like many people do. And with that stress, she ended up in November last year, she was transferred to Abbott Northwest Hospital because she had an abnormal EKG, because she had extremely elevated troponin levels, which was an indicator of heart damage. And she was diagnosed with stress cardiomyopathy, which is also known as broken heart syndrome. And this led to her husband having to be admitted. It became a crisis for her. He obviously can't stay home alone, and so they had to find a place for him immediately. And so she lost the choice of whether or not she was going to keep him at home because something had to be done. And that transition is hard. I know for my mom, my dad is also in a facility now, and that transition is hard. My mom wanted to keep him home. You love your person so much. You want to be the person that takes care of them, but you can't do it at the expense of yourself. And so sometimes that decision is the hardest decision to make. So it is really important for us to think about like safety, like Officer Borgart talked about, because if you're up all night taking care of your loved one, you're tired, you're exhausted, things aren't good for you, things aren't good for them. So you need to sometimes have those hard conversations. But the good thing about making that step, if and when it's the right time, is that like she can now go and visit her husband, and they can spend time doing the fun things that they couldn't do before because she was so tired, or they didn't have time, or she's just busy taking care of other things. And I see that with my mom too. She can go and she can spend time with my dad, and they can play cards and different things because now she has the energy to do that. But the other thing that I've seen with my mom in having lost herself is that even though Dad is still here, it's the figuring out and the rebuilding of who she is. And so you don't want to lose yourself, because then it's all figuring that out too. And so I just want to stress the importance of you to take care of yourself. But that's also the reason why we're having events like this, because we want everybody in this community to know that this is a problem that we have in our community. We have aging people, and it's not going to get less. It's not going to get smaller. And so we need to work together to try to find ways to support one another, whether it's just volunteering some time to go and sit with somebody or somebody's loved one so that they can go grocery shopping and just have an hour to kind of breathe, or whatever it is. So that's partly why we have those surveys out there. We want you to share your thoughts. What do you think are the problems? What do you think are things that you would need if you're in that situation, so that we can target our efforts towards what we feel like this community needs. All right, so that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, for sharing your personal story and also your friend's story. 168,000 dementia caregivers in Minnesota are providing 231 million hours of unpaid care. often enabling their loved ones to live in the community instead of moving into more costly residential long-term care. However, 1/2 of caregivers in Minnesota are living with chronic health conditions themselves, setting up a potential crisis situation for both the caregiver and the loved one with dementia. So we will move on to Greg Peterson, and Greg is a 1980 New Ulm High School graduate who served 23 years in the Air Force and has been employed by Brown County Veterans Services for 22 years. He holds a Certified Veterans Advocate Certificate from the National Association of County Veterans Service Officers and has been active in the statewide leadership for all county vet service officers. So Greg?
Well, thank you very much. So I would speak tonight primarily about the professional services that our department at the courthouse can offer through the federal government, state, and other things. 20 years ago when I started, if veterans were looking to use VA healthcare, they were taking a 2-hour bus ride to St. Cloud or Minneapolis. Then in a few years, the VA built clinics in Mankato and St. James, which is still pretty good. And now in just the past couple of years, they have really pushed heavily on a program they call Care in the Community. Now, veterans still have to be enrolled with VA healthcare. A good example is I had my knee replaced twice last year, but all done through the Care in the Community program. I'm having cataract surgery coming up. Uh-oh, we would die.
We got a spare.
Let's switch up.
There we go. By the way, is there anybody named Mike in the audience? Mike? See, I don't know why, but when I was in the Air Force, they always told me to do a mic check before we went the program. So, very good. Now it works. So this Care in the Community program is used extensively for all sorts of care, from orthopedics to general medicine to even memory care. And we are very happy to help people get signed up for that. Through the state of Minnesota, there's a program so most veterans programs are only for veterans. But through the state of Minnesota program, there is a program that takes into account the whole family, the spouse and children too. If there's a request for counseling, general counseling or financial counseling, let's eliminate some financial debt. We can help people get into those programs, and they're very helpful. I do have a personal story as well, maybe more than one. My mother did have dementia, and that's what caused her death. When my father died, that's when we realized that he was kind of covering for her and that she had dementia. We lived out on the farm, so immediately she had to go to town. She went to St. Peter and lived for about 6 years with it in different degrees, from an apartment to assisted living to a nursing home. But my real story is about my brother, who was a Vietnam veteran, and he had a series of different mental health conditions to include dementia, and in the past couple of years, it got so bad that he needed someone with him all the time. And he had an adult son, and so the adult son actually happened to live there, so we applied for a program called the VA Family Caregiver Program, and they paid my nephew, who's 50, $2,800 a month to provide that round-the-clock care, which became extreme at times. My nephew did get 10 hours a week of respite care. Usually took 5 hours on a Saturday and 5 hours on a Sunday, and then another care provider came in. And but I would tell my nephew, I said, I don't know how you do it. And towards the end, which was in late December, he said, I can't do it anymore. He's gonna have to go to a nursing home. And then, unfortunately, my brother fell. We didn't, fell outside. We didn't realize he had an internal injury. And about 2 weeks later, he passed away. So it took this tremendous toll on my nephew. He probably lost himself as well. My brother's obituary is going to be printed in the Saturday Journal. I just put that in there today so you can read about Glenn Peterson. I see it a lot in Vietnam veterans, and Vietnam veterans are older veterans. So we see a lot of dementia. Can't say it's from anything specific to their military service, but I encourage anyone. As a matter of fact, today we had a phone call from someone who has a brother in another state who has dementia. And some other states don't do veteran services as well as Minnesota does. So we were basically providing long distance advice. So we always encourage, please call, please come in, please see us. We're from New Ulm. You know, when it's 5 o'clock at the courthouse, we're not driving another hour to get back home. We're here for you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Greg, for sharing that. Only 25% of individuals with dementia receive paid care. Financial limitations heavily dictate who can privately pay for home health, and often that's what prevents people from getting the help that they need. We will then move on to Deb Igland, and Deb was recently diagnosed with mild dementia, and we want to thank you, Deb, for coming here tonight to share your story with us.
Yes, I was just diagnosed in the late fall with mild dementia, and I wasn't real surprised. I have 4 kids that are all grown-ups now, and I went to the doctor because they actually got together, amazingly enough, and decided that I should really go and see a doctor, because they were concerned about things I was forgetting, things I wasn't doing like I used to, that kind of thing. And so that's what prompted me to go to the doctor, and so I did. And I said that I would talk tonight because it's extremely scary to be in that position. I had no idea. My mother had dementia and ended up dying probably because of it, but to go to the doctor and then find out that your mind is starting to go and part of it's gone is really kind of mind-boggling. And it's been a scary road. I'm still functional. I realize that I get incredibly angry with my husband these days, poor guy. But it's because I'm afraid. I know that you were talking about losing yourself. And it's when you're still cognitive somewhat and you think, when is it going to change again? What am I going to forget by tomorrow? When am I going to not be responsible? And I've always been one of the smarter kids in the school, you know, and had a profession and have carried on well. And now I'm looking at this decline that I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how fast it's going to happen. And I just, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it. You know, and so I just wanted to bring that out, that try to have patience with the people that have dementia, because it's pretty darn scary on that end of it too. It's going to be hard on my husband, but it's really hard to know that you're no longer going to be yourself. But you don't know when. And simply, that's about all I have.
Thank you, Deb. I have a couple facts I'm going to share with you quickly. Dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, is not a part of normal aging. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, contributing to between 60 to 80% of dementia cases. But as I mentioned earlier, similar to cancer, dementia has a lot of different titles to it. Alzheimer's, Lewy bodies, frontotemporal lobe dementia. There's many different kinds. Other common causes of dementia include damaged blood vessels in the brain or brain tissue, which is a vascular dementia, the Lewy body disease I mentioned, and Parkinson's disease. Approximately 102,000 Minnesotans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's dementia, according to data from the Alzheimer's Association reported in 2025. 1 in 10 seniors in the state have Alzheimer's, with the risk rising to 1 in 3 for those age 85 and older. The disease has risen to become the 5th leading cause of death in Minnesota. By 2025, the number of Minnesotans with Alzheimer's is expected to increase 21.2% to 120,000 people, largely due to the state's population aging. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cameron Ryer, who's a family nurse practitioner with Medelia Health and the New Ulm Medical Clinic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Cameron Ryer. I'm a family nurse practitioner with Medelia Health. I've been with Medelia Health for 9 years now, serving both Medelia and now New Ulm in our new clinic here. My journey with dementia started when I was 13. I got my first job at our hometown nursing home and worked there all through high school and college. Then kind of progressed on through working my way up. Became a nursing assistant and then an LPN and RN and now a nurse practitioner. I was a paramedic for a long time too, so I've seen that side of dementia as well when it comes to family crises and emergencies. That being said, I'm a terrible public speaker, but my brain works faster than my mouth does, so I'm going to go off script here tonight. I'm a better writer. So, like it was said earlier, people think that dementia is just a normal part of aging, but it's not. Some forgetfulness can happen as we age, but dementia causes more significant problems that can affect independence and everyday functioning. As she touched on, there are several different types of dementia, but dementia overall affects more than 55 million people worldwide and is one of the fastest growing healthcare challenges in rural Minnesota. In communities like ours, the impact can be especially difficult because families are often trying to manage caregiving with limited resources, transportation barriers, workforce shortages, and caregiver burnout. One of the most important things to remember is that caregivers need support too. Caregiving can be physically and emotionally exhausting, and no one should feel like they have to do it alone. Here in New Ulm and Brown County area, there are several services that we do have available. We've got CAST, Heart of New Ulm, offer programs for older adults and caregiver support opportunities. Families can also benefit from the several local assisted living and memory care communities that we have here. Woodstone Senior Living, Prairie Senior Cottages, among others here in town, that provide specialized dementia care services. Transportation can be difficult as well, so services like Brown County Heartland Express can help people get to appointments and other community events. I think one of the strengths that we do have locally is strong primary care relationships. In smaller communities, again, I mostly have been with Medelia and Sleepy Eye. Providers often get to know their patients quite well, patients and families quite well over the course of several years. That continuity can help recognize cognitive changes earlier and support families through difficult decisions. Local clinics, home health agencies, therapists, skilled nursing facilities, and senior services all play important roles in helping people remain safe and independent as long as possible. Physical and occupational therapy are especially valuable and are often underused. Physical therapy helps maintain strength and mobility and helps with fall prevention. Occupational therapy can be transformative for families by helping adapt the home environment, improve safety, simplify daily routines, and help reduce caregiver stresses. Home assessments and home health services can identify risks before they happen and help people remain in their homes longer. But despite these strengths, there are also still significant gaps. I think the greatest challenge I see, as has been discussed, is caregiver exhaustion. Many caregivers are elderly spouses with health issues of their own or adult children trying to balance work, parenting, and caregiving responsibilities. Families often reach a crisis point before asking for help. I think another area for improvement is adult daycare services and respite care. I have worked in communities where they actually had adult daycare services that was part of a hospital program. So they could be at adult daycare, up to 8 hours in that day, set up like a home environment. They had occupational therapy that was there. They helped make meals and do projects and just try to keep that brain working. I think rural communities especially need systems that support people before emergencies occur. I believe that one of the biggest emerging needs is creating dementia-friendly communities. Communities where businesses, churches, healthcare systems, first responders, and neighbors understand dementia and how to respond with patience, dignity, and compassion. People living with dementia and their caregivers do best when they're surrounded by understanding, support, connection, and dignity. And this is something that all of us as healthcare providers, community leaders, families, and neighbors can help build together. I too have a dementia story. I have several dementia stories, but one of my most recent ones was quite unfortunate. 56-year-old gentleman caring for his wife who had some significant physical problems. He didn't take the time for himself, he didn't go to the doctor, and it was a full-time job taking care of his wife while still working to maintain an income to take care for his wife. He had come into the clinic with her, and she had just mentioned that he was doing some kind of silly things, forgetting where he placed his keys, and he had never done that before. And so we kind of turned it into his appointment, and started kind of the process of trying to figure out why this is happening. 56 is quite young for this to happen. And through testing, lab work, MRI, referral to neurology, ultimately he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia, 56 years old. We were able to, again, there's no cure for dementia, right? But there are some medications, therapies that can potentially help slow the progression. We did get him started on some of the medications, and unfortunately it didn't work. And by 59 years old, because of his wife's handicaps, she was no longer able to take care of him, and he is now residing in a dementia care unit. So yeah, just a little over 2 years after a diagnosis with mild symptoms, he has advanced quite significantly, and oftentimes doesn't recognize his wife anymore. So yeah, I think it's just really important that that you do establish that connection with the provider. Get your yearly exams done. Once Medicare age starts, we do the annual wellness visits and we do cognitive screenings. And the hope is that we can catch these symptoms early on to try and give the best possible outcome. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Appreciate that. You did a great startup for Kathy Vernick, who has been director of our adult daycare services that we had in New Ulm and had in Sleepy Eye, but unfortunately we lost it.
She's going to send me a new link, so maybe
Okay,
we
we'll see if we can
step
get
into
it.
something else.
Okay.
And get it back up.
Okay. I'm going to share a quick story then, as long as Kathy isn't here, and this is kind of a storytelling night. But one of the things that was mentioned the other day was for people who are diagnosed with dementia or know someone that is, the importance of getting on waiting lists early for things. My stepfather was diagnosed with dementia 3 years ago. My mother and Ted lived in Missouri at that time. So they didn't have any family there, but 3 daughters living here in Minnesota. So we encouraged them to move back here to Minnesota, which they did. So we did some searching at the time for a location where they could live in senior independent living, but that had a memory care unit within the facility, so that if my stepfather was going to need that level of care, that my mom wouldn't have to move and she'd be right there in the same building with him. Well, it happened about a month ago that we needed to move him into the memory care unit, and it has been a godsend for my mother to be able to just go downstairs to be able to see him. And to piggyback on what Jerry had said, it was a very difficult decision for my mom to make, to place my stepfather in memory care. She loved him very much and wanted to be able to care for him, but we've been seeing over the course of the last year that it was incredibly stressful for my mom, and she was aging, and she herself was 90, and she was just really challenged challenged with being able to manage those cares. And we kept telling her, you know, Mom, if you move him into memory care, someone else can do the caregiving for him, and you can be his wife again and be able to spend time with him and watch TV and you know, do the things together that you did before. And she's finally seeing that happen. So even though it was an incredibly difficult decision for her, I think she's seeing in the long run that it actually has been a good thing. So again, the help there was to be able to get him on the memory care wait list. So and we had to encourage her when an opening came, take it, because when he does need it and there isn't an opening, then you might have to move him somewhere else. So just a good lesson to learn for those who are facing that. So do we have some questions from people?
Yeah, we're still waiting for Kathy, so this might be a good time. If you have any questions, you can use the slips on the back of the chair, and then we'll get them up to Barb. But this also might be a good time for Diane to come and give us some words of encouragement and hope through the eyes of a child.
And
While we're waiting for her to come up here, I just wanted to also say that we have recently just started a memory cafe in the community here too. We had our first one last month, and we have another one coming up May 26th. Is that what it is, Carla?
Yes.
So that's Tuesday, May 26th at 10:30. And so what we're doing is we're having somebody come in. I think it's John Olson this month, but last month we had somebody come in and they did music. And so loved ones can come with their person with dementia, and just it's about having just a social time. Caregivers can connect with people and visit and stuff, but yet you're spending time with your loved one. And those with dementia that came really enjoyed the music too. So, and music is a great way to connect with our loved ones. So I just wanted to put a quick plug in for that. There also are resource sheets back on the tables back there. We've been working on creating a list of resources that are in our community so that you know where you can go if you do need some help with a variety of things.
We'll do Kathy first.
Can you
if,
hear me?
yes,
Oh,
we
we
can.
Okay, you can't see me though.
No.
Correct.
Well, I think there might be a very little clip of you on the top of the screen. Okay, Kathy, you can go ahead.
All right, sounds good. Hi Barb, it's good to see you.
Yes, you too.
My name is Kathy Vernig. For 15 years, I was the Director of Adult Day Services for Volunteers of America. I have since then retired and moved to Nisswa, but I lived in New Ulm for 37 years. And so New Ulm has a dear spot in my heart. And so when Carla asked me to speak today, I was happy to do it because I have such a love for New Ulm and the Adult Day Service Program. Right before I retired in 2020, COVID hit. And so I decided to retire. We had, through Volunteers of America, we had 2 sites. One site was located at Oak Hills Living Center, which was ideal for us. And the other site was located in Sleepy Eye at Ross Park. We were licensed at each site for 20 individuals. I can tell you this service is a benefit to the New Ulm community because I experienced it in that 15 years. I also facilitated the caregiver support group for those 15 years, so there has been a support group, but it also dismantled after I retired. Both sites have closed now, and so there is no adult day services for those 2 communities, which is, I really hope that this will spark somebody to engage in getting an adult day service available to the folks of New Ulm. The things that we provided at adult day service, we were open from 8 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it was definitely a gift to caregivers. I can't tell you how many times wives or husbands would come into me and say that it was a much needed break for them. Most of our participants came probably 2 or 3 times a week, and what we provided was health support, like med administration. If they weren't able to take baths at home or showers at home, we had a facility that could do that. Social activities, we provided breakfast, lunch, and an afternoon snack. It relieved isolation for the participant and much needed break for the caregiver. We were fortunate in New Ulm to, because I was located at Oak Hills, we could partner with them for meals. So meals were delivered through their services, and also through Ross Park, they were delivered through their services. So I just can't say how much adult day services meant to the folks of New Ulm that we cared for. One story that I'd like to share with you, we had an individual, a couple. The husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's. We didn't just deal with dementia, we dealt with stroke victims, Parkinson's, all sorts of aging issues. This individual had Parkinson's, and his wife couldn't care for him. She had broken her ankle and couldn't care for her husband. But she loved her husband so much that she found out about adult day services, and she wanted her husband to attend adult day services just so that she could have a break. She loved him so much, and he was so afraid to come to adult day services. He thought she was going to leave him at the nursing home. It was at Oak Hills. And so she came with him, and she loved adult day services so much that she stayed. She stayed with him and didn't need the services, but stayed because she loved the services so much. So, so many times in the morning when wives were dropping off their husbands, or husbands were dropping off their wives, we would get lots of hugs because it was just such a relief for them. They said they could no longer keep their loved ones at home if adult day services wasn't available to them, because they would have gotten burnt out. So it's a great thing. I sent all the information to Carla regarding how you license at adult day services, and I'm really hopeful that it will start again for the community of New Ulm. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and for the wonderful service that you helped to provide here. That is true, that is a great loss to all of Brown County, actually, to not have that adult day services. Respite care does provide necessary relief for family caregivers, allowing the caregiver to take care of their personal medical issues, complete tasks outside of the home, or have time off from the demands of caregiving. So even though there's no adult daycare here in the community right now, there is the hopeful goal that someday that will return again. So, thank you. With that, again.
Well, I'm kind of the trailer. I told them if they have more important things to discuss, I can just stay in the back of the room, but you see, I'm now advanced to the front of the room, but I'm not going on the stage, I'm staying right here. So what I'm going to tell you will probably surprise you a little bit. First of all, I love storytelling. I love children of all ages who like to hear stories, and I have a story to share with you. And the book is written by a person who had experience in their family with dementia, and the illustrator had a similar background. So this book is priceless, in my opinion. It's called Don't Forget Eleanor. Now, Eleanor is a big, big elephant, and she's a grandma. And she has this little tiny elephant who just adores the grandma. And as you go through this book, which is only 15 pages, the illustrations are wonderful. You see the grandma elephant swinging on her porch, waiting for this little elephant to come so they could go on their weekly excursion. And the grandma would take her, or him, to the flower shop, and to the music store, and to the barber shop, and to the playground and to the ice cream store and wherever they would share some activity together. And they both look forward to it. So, and she loved to say all kinds of big, important words she was teaching him. And one of the stories he absolutely loved was the time when the little baby elephant was born, and it was on a cold and stormy night. And he just wanted her to keep repeating that. And she said, and in spite of that, you have been flourishing. So he learned a new word, flourishing. Okay, so the story goes on, and what happens in about the middle of the book, all the colors become drab and very dark and gloomy. And you see the little elephant looking like he's really going into a pediatric depression big time. And the reason was, he had gone out to Grandma's to go on this excursion and she wasn't there. And then he kind of discovered that Grandma was going along on her tour without him, and she would lose her way. And he became aware that this was happening. So the next couple of pages, they've all kind of brightened up because he gets a brilliant idea. He goes to his little room at his craft table, and he starts making all kinds of signs, like the donut shop, and the ice cream shop, and the flower shop, and the playground. And as Grandma would be going out on her excursion, confused, she would put something at the next place so she'd kind of find her way home. It worked for a very short time. But then things got worse. And the stunning thing on this little elephant was, he one day went up to her, and she absolutely did not know who he was. That was, you know, the nail, the hammer, and the coffin. I mean, that was like, oh my goodness. So, the next couple of pages, he is trying to deal with that, and then he goes back to find Grandma, and he goes over to her house, and the swing is empty. Nobody is swinging on the swing anymore. And he went back a couple times, and all of a sudden, she's gone. So, at the very end, the little elephant has some friends. And they all get together, and they collect all these little pictures, and they make a memory album for Grandma. And it's really a delightful story. So what I gotta tell you is, I went to Hy-Vee, which I go to often, and I saw this 3 days in a row since this last thing, and I found the little elephant. So, the little elephant was smart enough at the very end to do something that brought sunshine memories for the little elephant in the album. So, with that, I thank you for a spectacular panel, and I want to tell you that the first session, Runnings gave us flower seeds, and we gave them away. And this time, Hy-Vee gave us real flowers and some flower seeds. And the reason for that is you can help yourself to anything you see that you'd like. It will help you bloom where you are presently planted and perched. And that is the thing. You're planted someplace, and then you don't grow very well there anymore. And you have to be perched in a new home. And it might be a memory care unit. And I hope we get the adult respite, because I had patients that absolutely benefited by that. And one of the things you gotta remember is, first of all, just because you had relatives or friends who had dementia and probably was on their death certificate, that doesn't mean you're gonna get it. That is misinformation. Right now, I can tell you that Dr. Ron Peterson, who's a neurologist and head medical director of the North Dakota and Minnesota Alzheimer's Association, right now at Rochester, Mayo, and other places in the country that are also very significant research centers, are looking for a blood test. And there are tens of thousands of blood samples, including mine, because you can go there and if you wanted to, donate your blood, they give you I thought it was pretty clever. They gave you a packet of stamps as a thank you. But they're looking for early markers because some of the dementias are inherited, not that many. It's going to be prevention, 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 and it won't happen in any of our lifetimes or maybe the next generation. We do have treatments, as Cameron had alluded to. Many of them are very expensive and not covered by insurance. That's a sock in the head. And some aren't very effective. But because people are so desperate, they're willing to shell out money just as a trial. Some do get a little improvement. We don't know if really it's the medicine or it's something else. One thing you gotta remember is there's a sanctuary place in your brain, even though you have advanced dementia, and it has to do with music. And they found that people who were nonverbal for many years, diagnosed with debilitating dementia, can't live at home, dependent on someone else for all their care, being fed, perinatal care, everything, turning in bed so you don't get bed sores. They found out that if they would play some music that that individual enjoyed when they were late teens or 20s, some of those people began to sing. So that's one of those places that's sequestered in your brain, and still, if you kind of look for it, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's been proven that that can occur. So with that, I want to thank everybody for coming. The other thing I didn't hear about was ACP, Advanced Care Plans. Advanced care plans are really important to write them. And then make sure somebody knows where they are. Because I had a patient, the worst case, most difficult case that I took care of, had been in 4 different nursing homes in the state of Minnesota. And at one place, she had a cardiac arrest and they resuscitated her. You don't want that to happen. Because the advanced care plan said, no, when my life is over, the last chapter to my story is written, just let me go to, and most people, if you have a real strong spiritual life, will say, I'm going singing right up to heaven, you know, it's where my soul is, and the body, we're now disposing of bodies in many different ways. You know, I delivered a lot of babies, but I said, I recently had a brother-in-law who died, and I said, my goodness, how difficult it is to not, you know, we had some difficult deliveries, but to leave this world is even more complicated. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, but I'm going to invite you to come over here after Carla talks with you and stop at the table because we have some treats for you. Compliments of Ivy.
So it's 7:02, and I know Officer Borkert, Chief Borkert has another meeting, but we do have 3 questions that we'd like to address and answer. So if you feel like you can stay another few minutes, that's great. Panelists, if you need to rush off and get to that other meeting, or maybe this is a good excuse for missing that meeting.
Okay, I'll ask a question and I'll just ask the panel if you could raise your hand if you feel like you have a response or want to respond to the question. The first one is, how do you get the person with Alzheimer's to attend the programs?
This might be good for you, Jerry. What do you think?
I'm assuming maybe programs like this, programs that are, you know, intended for individuals with dementia. That's my assumption. Is that kind of the question?
Does that
Do a mic check.
from the side? No?
Yeah, this one.
Hello?
There.
Okay. Well, I think, like in some of this, I don't remember who had shared, you know, sometimes they're apprehensive. Oh, I think it was when they thought they were going to just drop them off and leave them. So I think sometimes, you know, going together and spending time, and not to maybe phrase it like it's something like negative, kind of like you got to talk it up. Like, we're going to go and we're going to enjoy whatever it is, you know, whether it's music or we're going to have time together or things like that. I guess that's what I would say, is to just put as positive a twist on it as you can, because I think once they experience it, they might like it and want to go back.
Reflection on this. A lot of my customers did attend Kathy Vernig's adult daycare, and it seems that everyone had a problem with the word daycare.
Yeah.
It just didn't, it wasn't palatable.
Yes, I agree with that.
So adult day
I have
service.
an answer for that.
What's your answer to that, Kathy?
When we had individuals that were reluctant to come to day services, I would go to their homes and get to know them. We'd play cards. We would listen to music. All the things that they like to do in their home. And then when Heartland came to pick them up, I was familiar then to them. And so then I would ride with them to adult services, and that's how we help them ease into the program.
Thank you. Question here for Cameron. You mentioned a community that had adult daycare services. Do you know who provided those services and how it was funded?
Short answer, no. This was in Redwood Falls, and I think it was close to 20, 25 years ago. I do know that it was run in the hospital. It was in the actual hospital building itself. But no, I do not know who funded that.
Thank you. Another question I'm going to also send your way, Cameron, and that is, does Alzheimer's progress to dementia?
So Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. So dementia is just kind of the broad term for, any kind of memory loss, cognition issues, but then it's trying to diagnose specifically which type of dementia that it is. So be it Alzheimer's dementia, Lewy body dementia, vascular, frontotemporal, there's several different kinds, but they're all referred to as dementia.
Okay, hang on to that microphone, although others might want to respond to this as well. But the last question I had is, on TV we are bombarded with brain health products that promise a lot. Please comment.
They do promise a lot. So, short answer is, I don't know. A lot of the things that you see on TV for helping with cognition and memory, they're not FDA approved for anything like that. They have been studied, but we don't know how valid the studies are. They could be very small patient groups versus these very large, multi-hospital university studies. I do know that several of the ones out there that can help improve memory are more things that can help improve blood flow. So they help improve blood flow to the brain, maybe makes the brain healthier. It can come with risks, right? There's interactions with medications that you're already taking. Anything that improves blood flow can also increase the chance for bleeding. So then you worry about stroke issues. So you really have to, if you have a question about any of those supplements, you got to talk to your primary care provider. They are the ones that can, look at the rest of your medication, see if there's potentially any drug interactions, and help you decide if it's something that is safe to take. Along with those, anything that's on TV, it's probably expensive. So you have to take that into consideration as well. High cost and possibly low efficacy. Doc Ann?
Yeah, one thing you gotta say is, a lot of those things, when you take them, they probably aren't gonna kill you. That we can say. And they may have some side effects, but they'll drain your finances for sure. And I think it's important that you just don't say, oh, I think so-and-so has Alzheimer's disease. Debbie, you were the bravest person on that panel to come and share what you're experiencing. And you have to get a diagnosis. You don't just have a neighbor say, oh, they got Alzheimer's disease. That's bunk. There are ways that you can actually get the diagnosis, and then you can start tackling the challenges. Good for you.
A couple notes I had here that I didn't share yet, and that's one for all the caregivers out there. Continue to ask for what you need. There are a lot of people out there that want to help you, but they can't read your mind, so please ask for help. And then the last thing is just for all of us out here to urge lawmakers to pass legislation that permanently funds respite care grants and increases state benefits that can be used to pay for respite care for dementia caregivers. Because I think that Kathy would probably support the fact that one of the drawbacks to operating adult daycare centers is the lack of funding. And if there was more funding available through that, there might be more people that would be able to start up programs and services. So, did you have anything else?
I didn't write it down, and I just bring this up. Long-term care insurance will also help pay for. Long-term care insurance will also help pay for some of those services that are needed in the home, the professional care that comes in other than volunteers. So there are steps and measures that need to be taken in order to make that accessible to people. Timeline, you know, we have to wait 90 days for this, and if it's this level of care, et cetera, et cetera. Just to be aware, because some people overlook that. I know I visited with some friends. I forgot I've got that. I'll check into it. So just mentioning that.
I just want to thank everybody for being here. I think I'm going to cry again. It's just such a lonely journey. I have friends, so it's not, everybody asks me if my husband has dementia. There are days he probably wonders about me. But your presence here really makes a difference. And I know that you're going to be reaching out and connecting to people that need you in their life. Panelists, thank you for your expertise. I'm feeling a little hopeful that as we start this discussion, we can get somewhere. So thank you. And Barb, we couldn't have done this without you. She sent me little notes. What, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? No, we've never done anything like this before. So I really appreciate you. And Daryl, you made that happy. Really awesome to have you here. So I just want to point out, Josh, in the back of the room, if you know people that are in need of help around the home, you should talk to Josh, because we don't have that extended family always to help. And so stay after, have a cookie, have some lemonade, and just talk a little bit with each other. Thank you.